Hello and welcome to Who Cares, where we're going to discuss and debate the Doctor on his adventures through space and time.
So get ready for River Song's final episode for the 5th time.
And now that you've met me, you'll do your very best to forget me.
River!
Oi!
So hello Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake.
And this is Who Cares, and as we said today, we're looking at the husbands of River's song, which ideally is River's last episode, I think, so that's not bad. Again, written by Stephen Moffat, as you would imagine, because he tends to take the reins in the River episodes, because that's his character, just like Clara, and he can never let go of either of them. But anyways, this actually wasn't a bad episode, so...
I really enjoyed it, actually, and I really like River Song, the character, as long as she's not directly affecting the plot at this point. I think we've just established that their paths intersect at different times, and they hint at this being the very, very, very last one, but, she died on Trenzalore 2, and then she died before that in the fucking library, and, it just never really ends. So as long as if she has standalone episodes like this where it doesn't affect any sort of plot arc, I'm fine with it every once in a while.
That being said, if this is her final episode, I actually think this is a pretty good note to leave her on, because honestly, the last time we saw her, which I think was the kind of hologram version of her in Matt Smith's one of his last episodes, I thought that was a pretty weak way for her to go out, but this was a good punctuation mark at the end of her entire arc. Assuming this is it, not bad, Moffat. This is a much better farewell to what is basically a companion than Clara's farewell in the finale. Because Moffat has a tendency of being sentimental about his characters, and there's good sentimentality and there's bad sentimentality. Bad sentimentality is Clara having an open-ended ending that, leaves things open for her to come back. This is sentimentality that allows a character like something special for themselves with the Doctor, but also giving sort of a period at the end, saying, nope, this is it, goodbye. And I thought it was done pretty well.
You say sentimentality, and I think just, and that's a very polite word to use, I think hoarder, and kind of like, have you ever seen when they take the hoarder and they're like, okay, we're going to throw away this trash, and the hoarder's like, no, don't take the trash. That's how Moffat is with every single one of the characters he's ever written.
Yeah, it kind of is. That's actually a very apt metaphor.
Yeah, and so you just can't let go, and you kind of gotta okay, we can keep this garbage over here if you let us take one bag. It's kind of like that. So we just gotta kind of slowly pick away at his shittiness every once in a while. That said, though, again, I really did like this episode, and I hope this is her end, because I really did like the send off they gave. But then this was a pretty cool one, and it started out with the Doctor just kind of on a planet randomly, and of course it's Christmas, it's the Christmas episode, and then he immediately gets snatched up by this well-known British comedian who doesn't have any eyebrows today.
What I liked about this episode was, often with Matt Smith, they sort of mentioned adventures he had had with River Song off-screen,
Sure.
And often the adventures they had off-screen sounded more interesting and fun than the adventure you were currently in. This felt very much like one of those off-screen adventures, but we finally get to see one, you know what I mean? It just sort of wacky, and had lots of jokes, it was funny, and they're both clearly enjoying the adventure, and certainly she didn't realize who she was with most of the time, but she was still having fun, getting out of scrapes and stuff. That said, I do like that she didn't recognize him most of the time, and it does make sense, being this is the end of her life, and he wasn't even supposed to have this regeneration, so that kind of makes sense, and I like that he was sort of jilted most of the episode. That was kind of a neat way to have their relationship different. I actually thought the chemistry between Capaldi and her may have been better than it was with Matt Smith. Maybe it's because
I think it's the age.
It's the age, probably.
It is, because, Matt Smith he's a good-looking dude, and you could kind of get how he would have that sort of chemistry with say, Clara, or one of the Ponds, because they were closer in age. But it was always sort of like this weird cougar thing she had going on, which was endearing and funny and all that. But it seemed more like a marriage at this point, where they're both older and less flappy-handed, but they still have like clever japes back and forth. It was very good, and her character was really well written. She had a lot of really good, funny lines, and it was all very quick-witted. And I really, really enjoyed those episodes, especially with Capaldi. He seems, when you just look at him, his appearances, he'd be kind of slow and deliberate in speech. But when you get Capaldi going, he's really, really good to listen to.
Yeah, I liked the whole plot with the king that she was basically marrying just to get the diamond out of his head. That's funny.
Yeah.
I could see River doing that. Obviously, she's going to murder him to get the diamond, which the Doctor disapproves of. That's one thing I never got about her and the Doctor's relationship. I don't understand why he would be that into her, because she is basically everything he doesn't like in a sense, because she's a very means justify the ends type of person, which he is normally very against, but he's okay with her doing it because, I don't know, she has boobs or something. Like, I don't.
Well, I think
it was strange.
I think that's part of her charm. He likes her in spite of that, and I think that's what makes their relationship sort of work.
Maybe, and I guess I can see it more here, but again, when it was Matt Smith, because most of the time they spent together was with Matt Smith, obviously,
Sure.
It never worked there, because him being sillier and then being contrasted with her, who was always sarcastic, but she had no problem with killing people with her, like, laser scientist gun, whatever. It was a little weird, but again, it wasn't too bad in this episode. The fact that she had that sonic shovel, basically, that was kind of funny. That's a very Moffat thing. It was
and
a
then
little
she got her
eye-rolling,
Sonic
but
from Capaldi.
Yep, we do finally get that scene, which is interesting because there was a DVD extra at one point with Matt Smith that implied that happened off screen, but I'm glad we did finally get to see that and with the final scene. But we also get one of my favorite scenes with Capaldi probably ever, which is he's pretending not to be the Doctor, and he walks into the TARDIS and has
That
to
was
give
awesome.
his it's bigger on the inside spiel, and that was
so
good.
It just changed everything I've ever known about the universe. My entire world is unraveled. No, it was great. It was hilarious, and I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she was cracking up. It was very, very, very good. Capaldi playing the Doctor, playing sarcastic, playing new companion. It was perfect. It was so great.
I did think one thing was weird was River came off as a little dumb, that after, I know it's a bit they're doing, I know that's the joke, but after like the 5th time he drops super hints that he's the Doctor, I think she should have gotten it.
Well, the Doctor kind of does that sometimes too, though, where they assume, it's kind of this Dunning-Kruger thing where they assume they're the smartest person in the room and they don't expect the person they have no expectations for to be anything significant. That kind of
That's
happens
fair.
sometimes. And she's, got a lot of hubris in thinking about money, and I get it. It went on a little bit longer than I thought it would, but it didn't really take away because it was just fun. It was a fun episode. It didn't have to be like anything serious, and it wasn't.
We get finally the reveal of who the Doctor is to River, and that's a very good scene. The speech she gives about how she doesn't think the Doctor ever really cared about her because, he's the Doctor, he's lived for so long, how could he ever love someone like her? And then he reveals who he is, and she figures it out. That was a really well-written scene. That was a very well-acted scene. I believed that she had this longing for this person who she thought couldn't reciprocate, but then she finds that he's right there anyway and feels the same way. That's a nice scene.
It was good, especially because Capaldi definitely comes off as far more cold than Smith ever did.
Sure.
And so that works really well with her saying this out loud about him, with him standing right there. And she delivered that really, really well. She's one of the strongest actors that they've had on the show, and she's played this important, but it's still a minor role in the whole arc, and I was always impressed with her performances. She's done a really good job, and if this is her last episode, I'm really glad she got to, get it all out, you know what I mean?
So then at the end of the episode, we finally get their last sort of hurrah, and that's the ship they're on crashes, River gets passed out, he picks up the diamond, goes outside into the wreckage, and there's a guy there who's scouring the wreckage for survivors, and Capaldi does something that I love when the Doctor does this. It doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's very cool whenever he kind of just drops into someone's life and they're kind of maybe doing something good and he changes it forever, basically. And yeah, it benefits him, but still, it's kind of neat. He gives the guy the diamond and says, you should build a restaurant here because this is where the Seeing Towers are. In Silence in the Library, River said that's the last place they just came from, like right, and that's the episode she dies in. So you know that's their last thing before she goes. The Doctor goes back into the TARDIS, pulls a lever, and then the restaurant's there. He has to make a reservation for 4 more years in the future. This is what I love. Remember a couple episodes ago we talked about the Doctor just doing errands, walking in and out of the TARDIS, and changing. This scene is basically what we were talking about. So it's cool to see.
Except I wanted a whole episode of that.
Yeah.
When it could just be a day in the life of the Doctor, just like going and grab lunch and tea and stuff. That would be a really cool episode. This was pretty close to it. I always like when he uses time travel for self-serving purposes, though, and not just like saving someone's life. Like he's just like, I want a thing.
So River does go to the restaurant with him. This was a good scene too, because again, I think Capaldi and her have better chemistry. It felt more like they're a couple who've been together a long time.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a little final speech together. They talk about the towers, and that's nice. It was well written. And then the reveal that I think really cemented that this was a good end to a character was they had always said this was their last date. This is the final night they spend together. And then she asks, how long is a night on this planet? And he says, like, 24 years. So apparently they get to spend like 24 uninterrupted years together before she has to go to the library and die. And that's how you end a character with sentimentality. You don't say, oh, it's Clara who gets her own TARDIS and goes off forever. It's River Song who finally gets to spend time with her husband because they've always been going opposite directions and never got to stay together. Now they get some time to stay together before they know she has to go off to her inevitable death. That's a good ending. That's a way to do it and give justice to a character that you don't want to have unnecessarily sad ending for. An ending doesn't always have to be sad, but if you're going to end it, end it. And this is how they ended it, and I thought it turned out pretty well.
Yeah, especially because we already know where she's going to end up in that Tenet episode. So yeah, I really, really liked that. It was sweet, and it was, you don't really get a lot of these tender moments with the Doctor between someone that he actually loves. You know what I mean? Like sometimes he'll be like super nice to someone, like in A Good Man Goes to War. He was really nice to that girl from the tree planet or whatever, the one that gives her the Melody Pond, birth napkin or whatever the fuck that's called. It's just cool to actually see him give a shit about a person on a different level, and especially Capaldi. And I hope this is the end. As much as I like her, that was just a really, really good ending. But I fear this will be Clara's Christmas special all over again.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like, we're going to get this perfect ending, and then they're going to decide, no, we want her back.
Well, Moffat right now is actively looking for his replacement, he has said. So next season is probably going to be his last season. They've looked at a couple people. One of them is actually, there's 2 that I've heard of. One is the guy who did that show Being Human, which was like the show where it was the apartment full of, one's like a ghost and one's a werewolf. And the other is actually the guy who did Broadchurch. So
I'm currently watching Broadchurch again because the second season just came out on Netflix. So
I heard it's really good, which it's interesting that they're very opposite type of showrunners. One who's doing a very comedy type show and one's doing a very drama type show.
I wish they would do 2 showrunners.
See, I think that's a good idea. As much as Moffat has done good things, I think one person having control over a show like this creates sort of a George Lucas situation.
That's what I was going to say. It's very George Lucas-y. Like, you and I come up with pretty good ideas when we're just talking about Doctor Who episodes. Like, you'll come into the room sometimes, or we'll call each other, and you'll be like, cool idea for a Doctor Who episode, and you'll go, and then we'll start bouncing off each other, and the fake fantasy episode that'll never get made in reality gets better because we have someone to bounce off of. And I think if you could find 2 people that have a good relationship, maybe some chemistry, but they got to be on a not different spectrums entirely, but not the same one.
Yeah, I think that's 2 people can help because they help build up the good ideas, and they also, when one has a bad idea, you're able to say, no, fuck off, terrible idea. Yeah, and I think Moffat needs a person to tell him, no, fuck off, terrible idea every once in a while, or to just hone down an idea and say, whoa, calm down, you have too many ideas, let's focus down on this one and really, really, make sure this is fleshed out. That's
how you get metachlorians.
Yeah, pretty much. So I guess that's it. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about. The comedy was very funny. This was one of the funniest episodes this season for sure. The season overall, because I guess it's fair to talk about it because this is the last Who Cares for a while, unless we go back and watch some classic Who or some earlier new Who. the season was good. This is one of the strongest seasons of New Who, maybe the
Definitely.
strongest in my opinion.
It's up there. It's up there with I don't know, one of Matt Smith's got to be up there because he was great.
Tenet's maybe his second season, maybe Tenet's second season was
Tenet was fantastic too. I don't know. They're all really, really good. It seems the weakest one was last year.
Yeah, but Capaldi, excellent job. Moffat, if you watch this series, you know we've criticized him a lot, but overall he does write really good individual episodes and he has good ideas, but goddamn, if he hadn't dropped the ball in the finale with Clara and with a couple other things throughout the season, this would have almost been a perfect season. But overall, as an average, it's a great, great season. And if you're a fan of Doctor Who, I don't know how you could hate it. It's just so many interesting stories, so many great performances, some good speeches. The Doctor's character of the 12th Doctor is finally sort of solidifying. He's not totally serious, but he's not like totally crazy either.
I think the addition of the guitar and the Sonic Ray bands for their short-lived existence, those actually really helped him. And I didn't necessarily like either prop individually, but as a whole, like looking back on the season, it just makes him a more interesting and fun character. He's not so one note, and I think that had a lot to do with Capaldi probably seeing the first season in its completion and being like, we need more layers here, because it seems like he definitely had a little bit more to do with the character this year.
No, I think so too, especially because he's such a fan. I think he's able to say, here's what I'm doing, here's what I need to add to it to kind of make it my own. And I think he did a good job this season. Clara actually, even though I think her ending was terrible, was a better character this season. She had some growth, and she actually, if she had only had consequences for her hubris, would have been a perfect arc, but they just screwed it up at the end.
I would actually hope for the next season is it going to be Capaldi's last season? Are we sure?
We're not sure. He said it might be, but they don't know. It
Even
wouldn't shock me because if Moffat leaves, he might want to leave the new person with like a fresh doctor that they can kind of write themselves into. So it might be just out of convenience, which is kind of a bummer because Capaldi, I think, really enjoys doing it.
Yeah. Well, I'm good for another season or two with him, but for sure, especially after this last season, seeing where he's going with it. But I would personally like a season next season without a static companion. Give me a Monster of the Week situation with new companions every week.
I could see that. That'd be fun. I'd enjoy that.
Maybe two-parters, a couple two-parters with the same one over and over. And then maybe gauge the fan react. Kind of do a Donna. That's fine. You know what I mean? Like, she'll come back in a season and maybe we'll really have liked one of the characters and that can be the new companion and you can go off from there. But I don't know. I just kind of want some variety.
So I guess that's it until maybe when Class comes out. Jake doesn't really want to watch that, but we'll see. If it's like really, really good, I can probably convince him to watch it. Or maybe if it's really, really bad, it'd be funny to at least.
It can't be middling.
Yeah, if it's really, really bad, at least the first episode maybe we'll do. But we'll also be back to do the Sherlock Christmas special. We haven't really done any of the Sherlock stuff because we haven't been around doing this when the seasons have been going on, but we should. I'm moving, though, so it will be delayed a bit. We'll get to it as soon as we can, and I think we're going to have like a week off of Unpop stuff while I'm moving. So be prepared for that, I guess. So
be prepared.
Yeah.
Like all they do is wait for our videos to pop up.
So thanks, everyone. You can always follow us on Twitter at @TheRealUnpop.
You could always subscribe and get more of our deliciousness in your mouth.
You could always donate to our Patreon campaign if you want to help support the show. Other than that, until next time, I'm Hugo.
And I'm Jake.
And this has been Who Cares?